The Oscars was a big hit, but for all the wrong reasons. The Academy now investigating Will Smith for smacking Chris Rock across the face over a joke Rock made about his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. Watch here.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? that was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
Will Smith apologizing not to Rock, but to the Academy for the altercation while accepting the award for Best Actor, but offered no direct apology to Chris Rock.
I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees. Love will make you do crazy things. Hope the Academy invites me back. Thank you.
So far, Chris Rock declining to file a police report after the assault, and Will Smith was unfazed, seen dancing to Getting Jiggy with it at an Oscars party afterwards. TMZ reporting that Chris Rock apparently had no idea Will's wife, Jada, has alopecia. Piers Morgan, welcome to the show. Welcome to the network. Great to have you. What did you make of all this? You saw it live.
Well, first of all, lovely to be here on this fabulous show. I see myself as the reincarnation of George III. I wish to be treated with the same enthusiasm that you treated my royal forebear. So good to be here. No, it was the most stunning piece of television, wasn't it? And it made the Oscars interesting. It boosted their ratings. It did all the things we've been sort of saying. The Oscars has gone off the boil. No one cares anymore. But I thought about it a lot, about what I thought about this. It's actually quite complicated because I thought if I was Will Smith and my wife had been through 4 years of alopecia, which is a very serious condition, particularly, I think, for women, where they lose their hair in clumps. And eventually last summer, she shaved her head. And she talked about it being a terrifying experience that she'd gone through, losing all her hair. To then sit there at the Oscars and have 1 billion people watching as a guy mocks you for that. Now, it then comes down to me to one or two things. Did Chris Rock know that she'd had alopecia? In which case, I felt, comedian or no comedian, he crossed a line. And if I'd been Will Smith, I'd have been pretty tempted to do the same thing. Don't condone the violence. I'd have been tempted to do the same thing to defend my wife. But Chris Rock has made it clear, apparently through friends, that he didn't know that she'd had alopecia. In which case, it just becomes a joke about someone's aesthetic appearance. He probably thought she looked pretty cool. He compared her to G.I. Jane. Then he doesn't deserve any of the stuff that went down. And to me, it goes to a wider point, I think, about that marriage, about Will Smith's state of mind, about, I don't know, whatever's going on there. We don't really know. But it was a stunning moment. But I found myself gravitating, unlike 99% of people, I think, to feeling slightly defensive towards Will Smith.
A lot of people in the room were defending Smith or like consoling him, trying to make him feel better. But nobody was doing that to Chris Rock. Judge, what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think that the Oscars are not the hood. I think it's not a bar. I don't think you march up on stage because a guy makes a joke of your wife, which honestly I think is complimentary. She could do G.I. Jane too. She's good. Jada Smith she's got a fabulous body and she's beautiful, as was Demi Moore in that film. But aside from all that, in the middle of an event where people are going to get awards in their chosen profession, that this guy takes it upon himself to disrupt the event, to go up on stage, to commit violence on stage, then come back and curse out. So we can't even put on television what he says because he feels slighted about a joke, which most people, and by the way, if that's a standard, I should go to Saturday Night Live and really go crazy over there.
Yeah.
All right, but he doesn't have the right, and the public should not have to be subjected to that. I don't want, if I had little kids, my kids seeing that kind of thing. And let me tell you something else. You talk about criminal privilege, you talk about celebrity privilege, that guy has it. He wasn't walked out of the Oscars. He could have been taken out in cuffs. That was a crime, what he did. It's on tape. And it doesn't matter if Chris Rock doesn't want to file charges. It is the people of the state of California versus Will Smith. And Hollywood, though, proves that they don't have to follow the rules. If you're on the right and you say something they don't like, then they can respond with violence. And I think, by the way, Piers, to follow up on what you said, I think the guy's an emotional wreck. He goes from cursing to fighting to crying to, I mean, what is wrong with him? And the Academy should not condone it. And honestly, he shouldn't be allowed to come to the Academies again. Look, Kanye West can't go to the Grammys.
Yeah, he was pre-banned.
Yeah, he was pre-banned. He didn't do anything.
If I may just come back on that. I mean, every cowboy film I've ever watched, right, they go in the bar and one cowboy disses another cowboy's wife. What happens? Right? The cowboy punches him or shoots him and everyone cheers him because they think he's a man of honor, defending the honor of his wife. You know, I asked my wife this morning, I said, out of interest, if you'd had alopecia and this was our situation and someone did that and I went up and slapped him, what would you think? And she said, I've just had a conversation with our daughter who's 10. And she said, you know, I'm afraid Dada would have done the same thing. But violence is never the answer. And I sort of think that. I think
Jesse,
I think we can all agree it was wrong.
Jesse, you were asleep when all this happened. I was too, so we woke up and like, here we go.
It's one thing when a cowboy says it, another thing when a comedian says it. You wouldn't have done that because you have class. Or at least you sound like you do because you have a British accent.
Don't be too hasty. Don't be misled by the accent.
This is the first time I've ever seen the media cover black on black crime, so I'm actually quite surprised by this. If Mel Gibson had done this, can you believe Nancy Pelosi would be kneeling in the Capitol right now? He would have been the only guy not being allowed out on bail in L.A. County. Come on. He would have been allowed to go up on stage later and accept an award. Are you crazy? The fact that the L.A. sheriff didn't haul this guy out of there at the next commercial break explains why there's such a huge crime problem in this country. Because you can just go up as an audience member and just cold cock a comedian on live television and get away with it.
It wasn't only a slap.
A slap is more humiliating than a fist. You know it as a man, and I know it as a man. And I respect the fact that Chris Rock didn't press charges. It's not a good look when other men charge other men for hitting them. Not saying I wouldn't do that, but Chris Rock does have a good chin, and I respect that. But I think you were right about one thing. Not a lot of the other stuff, but the one thing. They have this open marriage situation, so this might have been a deep-seated issue that had boiled up to the surface, which would have explained why he came out and did this. But come on. We don't live in the Middle Ages. You can't have people just go up there and slap someone that tells a joke. And it explains why liberals have no sense of humor. Ricky Gervais has to be thinking to himself, oh, my God, how did I not get slapped?
Well, Will Smith does laugh initially, and then I guess maybe something changed, or he looked at her and she was not happy or something.
I don't know. Part of me was just really grateful that something interesting happened. That was probably the realest thing that has ever happened on the Oscars. There was no virtue signaling. You knew it wasn't a hoax because it didn't involve politics, right? That was real. I appreciated it. I have to say, and also it's interesting that in Hollywood, chivalry's not dead because apparently Hollywood loves it, right? They immediately supported him over Chris Rock. And this is an industry that has been anti-masculine values for decades. And now suddenly they're like, rah, rah, rah. To your point about the movie, about Westerns. There's an interesting contrast between Hollywood's real life and Hollywood's entertainment fantasy world. In the fantasy world, that works, right? You can shoot guns, too. In the Hollywood movie, you shoot guns, but you better not have a gun in real life. And you see what happens with Alec Baldwin when he gets one. So in this case, you saw Hollywood, the movie, blend into real life. You finally saw, oh, this is an act of chivalry based on love. And this is something that they do in their movies. To your point, this is exactly what happens in movies. So I think part of me, but I have to say this, professionally, this is wrong. You can't, it's out of line. You cannot go after somebody telling jokes and punch or slap them. And I do believe that Rock probably had no idea. If he had an idea that there was alopecia, he would have had a better joke. That was a terrible joke. But that's the professional part of me. The personal part of me being a hothead, I'm like Piers. I wouldn't know if I don't know if I could say I wouldn't do the same thing if my wife had been sick and in public and it was known. And I have to, sorry, Judge, I would be a hypocrite. I would be a hypocrite.
I agree with you.
But that's not a bar. That is not as you
Well, then
say,
that
a
makes
bar.
it consistently true. Judge, you know me. I act the same whether I'm at a bar or at this table.
No, but you would have gotten revenge.
That's true.
You wouldn't have spotted out, like you would have waited, calculated, and 3 months later, you would have just crushed Rock right when you didn't see it coming.
But also, I got to defend Rock. Class act in all of this.
Yeah.
So totally class act. It's such an interesting thing because there's a professional and a personal element to this. And I think that you have to you got to ask yourself, if somebody says something about your wife, I've been there. How many times did you want to reach into the laptop when you see somebody insulting your spouse and strangle them with your hand? Well, this might have been a culmination of years of that stuff.
Maybe, but I still go back to the
should
fact that he laughed initially.
Yes.
Well, he did that because he probably was people laugh when they're nervous. Look at Kamala Harris. She laughs during a thunderstorm.
But so should we change the law that allows you to react with violence
No.
if someone says words that you don't like? Is that where we're headed?
Did I say that, Judge?
If they say words
I
that
said
you
it's out
don't
of line.
like?
No, nobody said that, Judge. No one at this table said that. We said it was out of line, but I understand it. Something can be wrong, some behavior can be wrong, but you can understand why it was done.
That's what I think about.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
agree on that. Up next, clean up on aisle Biden. The White House spent all weekend trying to clean up the president's gas, but he just made a new one.